Hey, how's it going? Anyway, this is going to be the Senate Part One. I'm not going to do too much. I'm not going in too deep. Tomorrow, the next Part Two will be a little bit deeper in some of the tough stuff of the Senate. Senate's different than the House, and it was designed that way. We talked about that in class. In the history when they were making a bicameral um, legislative branch, they wanted to have the senators be that filter. So we'll do a lot of talking about that anyway. Well, again, this is the website, cla.org. Um, you don't need to go here that much, really, but it can help if you are confused with the remote learning stuff. And the lessons are in order here, weekly. Um, Takes a while to load up. My internet is not exactly flying with all this stuff I've been doing. Yeah, so it's all there, and if you're behind in lessons, whatever, you need to get caught up. Again, this looks like this is unfortunately going to be eighth grade. Just from all the meetings that I do on the state level and everything else, I know that DESE, which is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, they are trying to figure out how this should work, and they're setting standards for the next 2 months of what it's going to look like and what standards they want, like an eighth grader to have had in math and science, and make sure that you guys had what they call the super standards, and make sure we cover them. So things will be changing with this remote learning. It's going to get more serious. Not that it's not serious as it is. You got to make sure you get a schedule down. We're we're over a month in now, and we were hoping that we'd get back, but if you're not doing a routine, that's going to bite you. It's going to make things harder. So make sure that you're going to bed at a reasonable time. You're getting up. You have time to do some of your remote learning stuff. Um, with me, I'm trying to give you flexible stuff. I'm trying to give you like 2 or 3 assignments a week, and you can pick the days that you do them. I have the due dates, but you have plenty of time before the due dates. And hopefully, you also give yourself time too. That's important. I mean, you shouldn't be not sitting down and watching a movie with your family. Shouldn't be not doing um, games with your friends and stuff, video games and FaceTiming and Zooming or whatever. And you ought to get fresh air too, and you ought to exercise. I worry about that stuff with you guys because I know what I was like when I was in eighth grade, and I would have had a hard time with this no structure. It's tough. One of the things that I looked at was that this is what you guys see when I send something out, and I think this is what you see. It's pretty tiny. It's smaller than the thing that I work on to make it. And what kind of bugged me a little bit about it was the video. If you're just playing the video here, this is part. Um, it's wicked little. I mean, you can go to this YouTube thing and you can open another tab in your computer, and you can go full screen or whatever, or you can leave it like half screen whenever you like. If you leave it half screen, you can even just leave it going like that and be able to answer questions. Pause it and go through and answer questions, go back a little bit, and make it easy for yourself. But if you're watching it in this little box, that's not cool. I know it's there, but use the YouTube link. I have a YouTube channel. Let's make it go viral. I'm gonna be like make me a YouTube star. Yeah, that would be fantastic. Me and my cat. All right. So today's lesson is this, and what's going on here? I don't know. Good. Um, it's the Senate. So I like to start the Senate by what I would have loved to have been a field trip for us. Is the Edward M. Kennedy Institute in Boston. The Kennedy Library, like when a president leaves office, um, they really didn't do anything with like anything special, but sometimes their houses become like national historical sites, like John Quincy Adams, which is in Quincy. and John Adams. Their houses are there, and you can tour them. It's kind of cool. And of course, like George Washington's house is a historical site, and Madison's house is a historical site, and Jefferson's house is a historical site. So that's how it kind of went. And then it changed. It changed. I think I'm going to guess that Eisenhower. My dad did this like geek tour with my mom when he first retired, and went to like 10 presidential libraries, and he just said that the Eisenhower one, which is in Missouri, I believe, was the best one. Ronald Reagan's got a really cool one in California. It's right on the water. And Obama is going to build his in Chicago. It'll be interesting to see where Donald Trump puts his, if it's going to be in New York City, or if he does it in Florida. I'm kind of hoping he does it in Florida, because New York City's got tons of libraries and museums and stuff. And it would be cool if he put it like somewhere near the Kennedy Space Center or something like that. A lot of times they put it in universities, near universities. John F. Kennedy's is right next to Boston University, which is, when you look at this map here, this is my fancy pointer. I love this thing. This is, we're down here somewhere, and this is Boston. So right before you get to Boston, usually you're riding up this, and out on this little peninsula is the Kennedy Library. Kennedy Library is really cool. It's a nice field trip too. If I was going to do this field trip with you, I would have broke you guys up. I would have had half of you go through the Kennedy Library, which tells the story of Kennedy getting elected, his presidency, and all that stuff. And then it's a library because it's got all the papers from when he was president and stuff. You can do research there. Ted Kennedy was first elected to the Senate in 1962, and he served until he died in 2009. He was one of the longest serving senators. And a lot of people say, well, you should have term limits. People shouldn't serve that long. People can vote them out. I mean, I don't really necessarily agree with that. Senators and congressmen, we can vote them out, and if we don't like them. And Ted Kennedy was he was a Democrat. He was a liberal Democrat, but he was kind of like the grandfather of the Senate. He loved the Senate so much, and it was him. So when he died, he wanted a museum that could teach kids about what the Senate was, and that's what this institute is. It's designed to be a learning tool. I've gone through it a couple of times. It's only been open for a few years, and what's the coolest thing about it is they have the replica of the United States Senate. It's an exact replica, the exact scale. It even has the place where the press sit, and you can go up there and sit there, and the gallery and the desks and stuff. And the only desk whose drawer opens is the one that Ted Kennedy sat at. And then it has a screen behind here, because what they do is all the way around this is teaching you about the Senate, and they give you like little. It's a very high tech museum. They give you like little iPads or something, when you come in, and you do these. It's like an interactive museum, and then you come in here, and they have debates and stuff, and you're a senator, and you can talk, you can debate, you can vote, and they go through what it's like to be a senator. All right, let me play this, which kind of introduces the Kennedy Center, and then I'll do the commercial for it, kind of. Oh, I have the volume off still. Good.
Teddy loved education, he loved history, he loved civic engagement, and he loved the United States Senate. And he felt that by understanding the Senate, its important role in our system of government, that more people would be inspired to get involved, to be a part of the system, to want to go back into their communities, do something, and make a difference.
I think it's appropriate that the Institute is named for Senator Kennedy, because he had such love and respect for that body.
My hope for the Institute would be that it could generate another Ted Kennedy someday, that it could help inspire people to want to do what he did, which is to lead, which is to sail against the wind, which is to be able to be passionately a leader for your point of view, but nevertheless able to work with other people to find common ground, to accomplish things for America.
Senator Kennedy inspired so many with his decades of service, so I can't think of a more fitting tribute than working to educate and motivate future generations of citizens and public servants alike.
Debate policy judgments, not personal motives. See the world from the other person's perspective so they can see it from yours. That's how to forge consensus and compromise in the most heterogeneous democracy in the history of the world. That's what this Institute is all about.
My hope for the Institute would be to encourage and promote the idea that the Senate is an extraordinarily important function that makes this country work.
It's the only legislative body in the world where a simple majority is not enough to do most things. And so people have a hard time kind of understanding why a supermajority would be required. It's been a very important part of our history in the country. It's a way in which matters that are not fully thought out are slowed down and discussed. And I think what the Institute will likely do is to raise the level of awareness of how the Senate is and why that's important.
I'm glad that we have a place in Boston that students can go to study some of our country's greatest leaders. I'm glad our kids can go relive the big fights.
So you see, I can't think of anything more important than what the Kennedy Institute is trying to do. And my goodness, I hope that they will not only have thousands of visitors, but I hope this model of how the Senate works, the problems that the kids who visit this place will participate in solving, pretending they're senators, I hope those will become lesson plans.
I think the Institute serves as an inspiration because I know of no other place in this country that is dedicated to the United States Senate and that provides individuals of all ages literally the experience of walking in, being on the Senate floor, and feeling being a United States Senator.
When I bring my 10-year-old granddaughter, Maya, to the Edward M. Kennedy Institute, I want her to walk into that Senate chamber, and I want her to sit in one of those seats. And I want her to just close her eyes and imagine the possibilities. And know that in this country, sitting in a chair like the one she sat in, that one day she could be standing before that body, leading it, or maybe even as president of these great United States.
Visiting the Institute, I think.
All right, I don't want to kill you with this, but I do want to show you this. This is kind of like their sales pitch video, really quick. It's a short one. All right, now it's not going to come up. I'm going to cry. Hey, there's that guy that looks surprised. All right, it's not going to come up. I'm wrong. It was kind of cool because it was like an intro to what the Kennedy Center is, and it just talked about the fact that, it's designed for field trips and it's designed for students to go with their families and visit young people. And it's designed to inspire you to be involved in politics. And, not only that, but at night they have like a lot of politicians. They like a couple times a month, they have like lecturers come. I've gone to a couple of them, and it's usually politicians or people who work for politicians and, some really cool things, and so that's the Institute, and it's near us, so it's a shame. But when this stuff is over, you ought to go there. There is in high school they do this as a field trip. They did it this year, so they'll probably do it with you guys. All right, next slide. All right, so this is going to introduce the facts and some examples of what it looks like, and then I'm going to end it. It's going to be, so here's the intro to the United States Senate. What is the United States Senate? Not a bad video.
The Senate is one of the two parts of the United States Congress. The country's founders imagined that the Senate would be a fence against the emotions of the people. George Washington reportedly said, the Senate would cool laws proposed by the other part of Congress. Today, the Senate is not as separate from voters or from other lawmakers as it used to be. But the Senate has a few special powers. For example, its members can approve federal officials, such as Supreme Court justices. They also vote on treaties with other countries. A senator's term in office lasts 6 years, and senators can be elected as many times as voters want. The Senate does its lawmaking work through 16 regular committees. They study and make decisions on the federal budget, foreign relations, national laws, and other issues. Senators also gather together to talk a lot about why they plan to vote a certain way and why other senators should support them. Because of all their talk, the Senate has been called the world's greatest deliberative body. But observers have noted that the Senate is a group of very different, independent individuals. Getting a majority to agree can be like herding cats or loading frogs into a wheelbarrow.
I like those analogies, and it really is true that it's considered the greatest deliberative body. It's where great debates take place. They try to persuade each other. They try to compromise, and that's what Ted Kennedy represented, was the power of compromise. He was really good friends with a lot of Republicans, and I think his best friend in the Senate was a right wing Republican, and they were able to work together, and we don't see that as much anymore. But in the Senate, they don't have to worry about those gerrymandered districts and stuff. So you're going to see more compromise in the Senate. You're not going to see that, you have to be an extremist. All right. So the Senate website. I just wanted to go here to kind of show our senators. So go to the states and Massachusetts. There we are. And our two senators, Elizabeth Warren, she just ran for president. She was a Harvard professor in economics, and she became an economic advisor to President Obama after the economic downfall. And she promoted and pushed for loan and banking reform, and more fair things for people. And then the other one you probably have never heard of is Edward Markey. He was a representative for a long time. He's only been in the Senate. I think this is his first term. He's an older man though, and our congressman is running against him this year. So he's up this year, and Joe Kennedy is running against him. Let's go to their websites. Just to go to their websites. Again, these people work for you as much as they work for me. You can't vote yet, but they're supposed to represent every human being in the state of Massachusetts. There are statewide, there's no districts or anything. They both represent us in the USS. She's got 3 offices, one in Springfield, way out there in Western Mass, Boston, and of course in Washington D.C. And so you can follow her on Twitter or all the other things. Let's go to his. Does it go back? No. All right, Ed Markey. Again, he's in the fight of his life. A lot of people don't know a lot about him, and Joe Kennedy is pretty popular. It'll be an interesting race between the two of them, both Democrats. But this is his website. It doesn't say where his office locations is unless you click on something. All right. He's got one in Fall River. He's got one in Boston, Springfield. So he's got one more office than Senator Warren does, which is, again, when you have an office like that, you probably have, it's probably empty a lot, but there's probably staff that kind of wander in and out too. So sometimes you can go there, even there's hours probably. You could go there and bring up issues and stuff. But you can call these guys. You can email these guys. They're here for you. When you're upset about something, when there's something coming up, they work for us in Washington, and they can make a difference. And none of people contact them. Let's get rid of that. The example. This is like the example I gave you in the other on the House Representative side, and I wanted to show you how they were strict with time and how they did the scoreboard, voting thing. I just wanted to show you kind of how they vote in the Senate, which is different, and how they debate, which is different, because there's only 100 of them. There's 2 per state, 50 states. There's only 100 of them, so there's different rules. Again, you can always tell you're looking at the Senate because they have their own desks, and it looks like the same room. It's smaller. It's about the size of our cafeteria. They have 6-year terms. So the example, I have some cheat notes here to help me. I'm going to go, again, I don't want to show you any of these other ones, because they're doing social distancing. So it's really not what the Senate is really like. So I'm going to go before this, and I found on March 5th, we were still thinking that we were normal on March 5th, even though we really weren't. And all right, here we go. I'm going to go to 227. No, don't start doing that. So this is a roll call. That's how they do it. They set a timer, and isn't there a timer? Making me a liar. And the senators either come up, or at the end they start calling them out. But once a senator comes forward, they'll call out that, Senator Warren votes no.
Mr. Young, aye.
See, Mr. Young, aye. That means yes. So they just wander up there. These are the senators. Senators, for the most part, because there's 100 of them, it's not as tamed as the House. This is voting, though, and you saw in the House when they voted, they were just wandering in and talking too. But there's no scoreboard.
Mrs. Gillibrand, aye. Ms. Klobuchar, aye.
They approach and they say how they're voting, and and they approach here. Again, the person who presides over the Senate is supposed to be the vice president, but I've told this story. You need to be careful with it, but John Adams, the first vice president, wouldn't stop talking, so they made a rule, and the rule is that the vice president cannot participate in debate. They can only break a tie. So the vice president is very rarely ever
Mr.
there.
Sullivan.
Unless they know there's going to be remember they have those whips? Those are the people from each party that kind of count heads before, and they kind of know how it's going to go. They're kind of like the sports guys before a football game, and they kind of predict the score, but they have a little bit more knowledge of how people are going to vote. And they will, if it's going to be close, then the vice president will make an effort to get there. So just in case he has to break a tie, and he'll make sure it goes the Republican way because he's a Republican. But other than that, they just have somebody be the they call him the president. They don't call him the speaker. They call him the president of the Senate, and that's it's pro tempore. It's a temporary president. And anything really interesting. This is a bad angle, but this is the center of the room. And if you notice, this desk and this desk has this little thing on it. This is the...
Ms. Cortez Masto, aye.
I might be wrong on this, but this little thing that sits on the desk and you can move it. Oh, there's Mitch McConnell. He's the majority leader. This is his desk. And the minority leader
Mr.
sits...
McConnell.
He just told her he voted
Aye.
yes. I just saw his finger go up. Let me pause
Mr.
this.
Wicker.
So this is his desk, and he has this podium there all the time if he wants it. And then this is the minority leader, which we'll talk about more tomorrow. Senator Schumer from New York, who this is his desk, right? The rest, your desk is kind of randomly placed, and it's your desk. I mean, it's always your desk. If you're going to speak on something, they move this to your desk. You don't come forward. They move these things, and they have these like little microphones. They either can slip into the front of the podium, or you can clip it on yourself. Let me go ahead to like where they're talking. I have it here, 4:30-ish. This is a debate, but so that's what it kind of looks like. So she's holding on to the microphone.
In a position now where we can actually get this done as part of the overall.
Importantly, looking out for one another.
So here's a good example where he's got this at his desk because he's presenting something, and he's got that microphone clipped onto him. The microphone can also go into this, right? So, but if you wanted to just say something quickly, you could just ask for the microphone, and they're pretty cool about it. Again, not everybody is in the room because everything's going to be put in the congressional record. You can find out. You can also watch on video like we're doing. But that's kind of how the debate goes. And it's not timed. It's not like I have to yield 2 minutes because there's only 100 members. As long as you want to talk about something, as long as you want to debate, you can talk about it. As long as you don't yield the floor, you can keep talking. So they talk until people are done talking. It takes 60 votes to call for a vote. So,
Mr. President, last week I highlighted
I don't care what they're talking about. I just wanted to kind of show you what the debate looked like.
Home until the U.S. Department of Defense completed a thorough review.
So again, he's moved this to his
We now know that
his
21
desk,
of the foreign military
and
students
he's
were withdrawn
clipped that
from the
into
program
his jacket rather
and
than put it
returned
there.
to Saudi Arabia after an investigation found that they were engaged in dangerous activities.
So that's the difference.
Including
That's what the debate looks like on the Senate floor, and kind of cool, kind of different. I think I'm going to leave it there for today. All right, so this is it, just the intro, who our senators are, Markey and Warren, example of debate. Tomorrow, I'll explain this stuff. Like, this is kind of confusing how, they have 6-year terms, right? But there's an election every 2 years because of the House of Representatives. So what they did was they staggered them. And that's kind of cool how they did that. So there's always in every election, even if every senator was to lose, 2/3 of the Senate would be experienced. Because remember, we wanted the Senate, well, the Founding Fathers did. The Founding Fathers wanted the Senate to be like the House of Lords, the most experienced, the professional politicians, the filter, to make sure like the stupid stuff that came out of the House of Commons got filtered out before it got to the president's desk, kind of. That was the idea behind it. And remember, originally, senators were not elected. They were appointed by the states. Right? So tomorrow we'll talk about that. We'll talk about not tomorrow, but the next one, part 2, we'll talk about this. We'll talk about, the change. We'll talk about Mitch McConnell. I'll tell you his story and, and this stuff here. And that's all I have to say. All right. So I have a few questions. It's multiple choice, and do the best you can on it. And I'll probably put a little thing about if you have any questions, comments, concerns. All right. Have a good one.